So the topic I think I was given was leadership in a time of change, and I want to try and put that into context of maybe what we all need to be doing as leaders in our own situations, in our own institutions. I'm going to give you some experience from the University of Technology in Sydney in the Faculty of Engineering and IT. So what we've heard about so far, and I know Richard Felder spoke about this morning, is that we've got a different kind of world. We've got a need for changing engineering curricula, and one of the key issues is the future of work. Engineers increasingly have to grapple with complex problems, with emergent solutions, and we've seen that very clearly in the pandemic that we're all currently living through. At the same time, we've got a whole lot of transformative technology. So we've got, computer technology accelerating. We've got the Internet of Things. We've got Industry 4.0. All these things are wonderful opportunities, but also seriously destabilizing technologies for what we've taught students in the past. And we've got companies that want to get products to market more quickly than ever. These markets are global. We need multidisciplinary and multicultural workplaces. And at the center of all of this is engineering as a collaborative process. And graduates need communication skills more than ever. And I put that picture in there. I think that was a picture of the traffic in Hyderabad when I was there last year or the year before. And as a civil engineer myself, if I gave that to a bunch of students and said, right, sort out this traffic problem, would they know where to start? So one of the things that's happening here in Australia is that we're doing a review of engineering education. It's titled, I think, Engineering 2035. So we're looking kind of 17 years, or now 15 years ahead. I think it was 17 or 18 years when it got started. And what the preliminary findings show, and these I'm sure come as no surprise to most of you, is that we need engineers with a stronger societal focus to deal with complex real-world scenarios, stronger engagement with industry and the community through the curriculum. We've got all these new digital tools they need to know something about. People talk about digital twins, which are becoming more and more common. And all of this is going to rest on ready access to online learning, which we've now been thrown into through COVID-19. But if any of you have tried to do that, and and we've just heard from CRAM and from Annette Kolmos that these are the things that need to embed sustainability in our programs. We also know that trying to change curriculum is really hard, and I'm sure many of you have had that experience, and there's lots of pushback. There's lots of pushback from our academic colleagues, from interestingly enough, often from the students, and from deans and others who say, well, this is expensive, why are we doing this? And I thought it's worth just a little reflection on, well, why do we teach as we do in any case, and how might we do it differently? And many of you have probably seen this picture before. I love this picture because it kind of shows where our teaching methods have come from. I think this picture is from the 15th century. So here we have teaching methods that were already old when the picture was painted. And you can see that it's very like a modern lecture theatre. The lecturer up the front, some of the students paying attention, some of them not, somebody talking in the back row, somebody having a little sleep. The really interesting thing are the people down the front left-hand corner who I think are there to check on the quality of the presentation, and in the introductory remarks there was the issue of quality assurance in engineering education. So that idea has been around for quite a long time. Here's another quote about the nature of our education, and that modern education is like being taken to the world's greatest restaurant and being forced to eat the menu. by Murray Gell-Mann, who's a famous physicist who's no longer with us, unfortunately. But I think that's true. I think we have the exam move on to the next subject, so it's hardly very inspiring. But as Richard Felder said this morning, what we know that works is active learning, and he and Michael Prince have written a couple of seminal papers, which actually are quite old now. But if you ever need to put in front of a colleague that kind of research paper that says, does this really work, then look up their papers in the Journal of Engineering Education. I think there was one, might have been in the International Journal as well, that thoroughly explore the issue of active learning, and Richard talked about that this morning. And I think a good example of this is the Formula SAE racing team that happens in many, many universities around the world in mechanical engineering. Although it's based in mechanical engineering, it often draws in other disciplines of engineering, electrical engineering, computer engineering, all sorts of, even business students who come in to work on sponsorship. And these students, I think, embody all that we would like to create, and that does away with that idea of let's just eat the menu. Because these are the students who are often in at university at 6 or 7 a.m. and have to be chased home at midnight because they're just so engrossed in what they're doing in building these small racing cars. And you think, yeah, that's the kind of university I want to work in, where students are there, 15 hours a day, and probably in on the weekends as well, as competition gets closer. Why don't we have that kind of university? Interestingly enough, I was reading my email this morning, and there was a message, the latest message from tomorrow's professor. And I don't know whether you subscribe to that, but you really should, because you get these twice weekly terrific little articles about how to improve higher education. And the one this morning was 6 key principles for student learning experiences, for really engaging student learning experiences, and all of these things are what we've heard about today. So students need challenging ideas and also challenging people. So sometimes they need to meet people who are very unlike themselves. They need to be actively engaged. They need supportive environments, so mentors, but also resources around them to do really good work. They need active real-world learning. Talked about that already. It needs to be collaborative, and it needs to be reflective. So students need to be regularly prompted to go, well, what are you learning here, and what more do you need to be learning? And one of the things that then leads to is this idea that really we should be engaging students in learning activities. As Thomas Schul says, that's the teacher's fundamental task, is to engage students in learning activities. And he wrote that in 1986. And I think that should be emblazoned on the wall outside every teaching space, every lecture theatre, every tutorial classroom. The teacher's fundamental task is to get students to engage in learning activities. And many of you will know about the Cdio Initiative, which stands for Conceive, Design, Implement, Operate. It's got a bigger footprint in Scandinavia and in the US, but also in some of the Australian universities and probably in universities in your countries as well, in Malaysia and elsewhere. And it's probably the best organised international effort to really move engineering curricula to this kind of active learning, project-based learning, real-world learning, collaborative learning, all those things that we... So let me talk about how we've gone about this at UTS. We talk now about studios. So we've kind of moved on from this idea of project-based learning. So if you like, we see studios as problem-based learning or project-based learning 2.0. And we're working to embed studios in every one of our engineering programs, perhaps not in every semester, but in almost every semester, so that students are having these constant studio experiences of building up practice at working as young engineers. So what's a studio? Well, it starts with a challenging scenario, and we've talked about that already. The students work in teams, they use the latest computing tools. We talked about digital technologies earlier. It relies